The day was September the 9th, 2025, and I was tracking a flight that landed right here in Hastings, Nebraska. And in a little less than 24 hours, this country would be gripped by the assassination of Charlie Kirk. That wasn't the only flight that I had been tracking. On July 20th, 2025, not in Washington, not in New York, not in New Jersey, in Nebraska. And that flight was an Egyptian military aircraft, and it was tracked, logged, and then ignored until it was brought up by Candace Owens. And they'll tell you that's normal. They'll tell you it's diplomatic, routine, a coincidence. But here's the problem. I wasn't the only one tracking it. And what we found doesn't line up with anything they're saying. You may ask, Egyptian military planes, tracking, why Nebraska? And those are great questions. Because this isn't about one flight. It's about a pattern that leads to a place no one is talking about. Hastings, Nebraska. On September the 9th, while I was sitting in an accountant's office in Grand Island, discussing an interconnected issue, I was rushing to get out because I knew there was an inbound. And on that inbound was a very rich billionaire from the East Coast. And for the first time in 7 years, was making his presence known in Hastings the day before Charlie Kirk was killed. I'll take you to some footage of that day. This is at the Hastings Municipal Airport. And that's what this channel is about. This channel is about exploring structures and patterns that other people miss. And tonight, I'm going to show you where the plane actually went, why Nebraska matters, and how this connects to something much bigger than a single flight path. This is Principles of Seven, and I'm your host, Dave Sharp. So what I want to do now is I want to put an image up on the screen, and this image is going to be of an email that I sent on Halloween. And I'm putting this up as proof, and that's going to become important later. There were numerous emails that I sent out that day. And if you need to pause this to read, go right ahead. And I have all those emails documented. And some of those emails and text messages on the 9th were in preparation for what I knew was going to come. And on September the 10th, 12:23 local time, the exact same time that Charlie Kirk was being assassinated in Utah, with an hour time difference, I was sitting in the Hastings Police Department discussing Utah and these local situations, which are about to come out now with Detective Nathan Hansen. Since I've done everything ahead of time and documented it ahead of time, there's going to be those that question. But in the end, the truth is like a caged lion. If you set it free, it'll defend itself. Okay, so what you're seeing right now on the screen, pay attention to, because this is also going to bring it back to Hastings. If you need to rewind the video to start it over, go right ahead. When we get down to this business delegation, HDR, they built the Minot Air Force Base. Look that up. General Dynamics built the first F-16. Valmont another combat weapon system. Then we have our local WR Reserve, or Noah's Ark. Rexico. Look into that company and who owns it. We have another Hastings business, Nebraska Cold Storage, one that I used to be general manager of. Look at those companies. What do they have in common? Seems a little odd, doesn't it? Sure does. On September the 9th of 2025, I was sitting in Grand Island in an accountant's office, having a meeting about an interconnected matter. And I was rushing to get out of that meeting because I knew there was a plane on its way to Hastings, Nebraska. And that plane was coming in from Minnesota. And with text messages that I have that I'm not going to disclose at this moment, I reached out to somebody at the Hastings Municipal Airport. On September the 9th, there are numerous text messages that I sent out because I full well understand that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. But this is much bigger than just the flights that I was tracking that day. In future conversations, that documentation will be put out, but I will be giving you proof in this video to where you will understand that what I'm telling you is absolutely factual. And at some point in time, in the not so distant future, that text message and the other text messages I sent that day will be made public. If you go onto my channel, you'll find that there was a video that was put out over a year ago talking about full disclosure coming to Hastings, Nebraska. I didn't just do these things haphazardly. This is about structure, and this is about something that is very real. So I have a series of videos that I'm going to play, and I'll try to keep this as short as possible, that is going to set up the understanding of these Egyptian military planes and their connection to Nebraska, and this flight that came in to Hastings on September the 9th. I'm going to put those videos up now. So if you've been following Candace Owens at all, you understand that Charlie Kirk was a friend of hers, and they had worked together at Turning Point. They had a very close relationship, and her whole purpose is to find the truth for her friend Charlie. With that precedent set, let's roll right on into the next one.
So there was something in Wilmington that held the interest of our Middle Eastern people that are here for some reason. Well, like I said, someone emailed us and we took our time vetting this tip because it seemed plausible, right? It seemed plausible to us that what you guys are thinking, maybe this was meant to distract us. We're going to run down this rabbit hole. And no, that's not the case. We vetted it across multiple government agencies and to really the highest levels of government. So this is legit. I've printed it out and I'm going to read around some parts, removing some parts to provide this individual, who, by the way, I have no idea who this is, but to give him and her even some more coverage. Even though they said that they were very thorough in making sure it wouldn't get back to them, but you never know. They're taking a tremendous risk. So I'm just going to read this to you guys, and I'm going to read it slow for comprehension because I had to read it slow myself for comprehension. It starts out with, Candace, I'm aware that you suspect the government and other entities are involved in the events leading up to and on September 10th. I'm aware that you also tied the plane, SUBTT, yellow plane, to this, and that you are receiving tips. You might have been wondering why SUBTT made so many visits to Wilmington, Delaware, out of all places, and I can personally answer that. What I can say about myself is blank, blank, blank. I'm not going to read that. I'm not going to read that. I'm not going to read that. Some people may tell you that SUBTT stopped at Wilmington because it was, quote unquote, just maintenance. That is not true. The information I am giving you will implicate the FBI and various other government agencies all at the same time. I am passing this to you because you are honest enough to see this for what it is. You may put this in your notes and reveal this pattern publicly, but this, and then he talks about why this information is dangerous, so I'm going to skip and get to the information portion. The information portion reads this. As you know, on September 10th, an Egyptian government Dassault Falcon 7X tail number SU-BTT came into Wilmington, Delaware. I tried to pull non-public movement data, and it came up empty. For me, this means that the arrival was processed under a diplomatic and dignitary category, which would not show up in the usual places. That in and of itself wouldn't be odd if we were talking about Andrews or Dulles airports. It's odd at Wilmington. You can't verify this next piece directly, but I can independently. I can confirm that blank uses vehicles which often leave and enter that airport when they do covert handoffs. Now, I have no affiliation with SUBTT, nor am I an operator anywhere near Egypt or its planes, but I do know that only federal vehicles are allowed access to private gates housing government planes. Because of this, I can guarantee you that the vehicles affiliated with this workspace arrived and left inside the same window as SUBTT. Government vehicles either pick up, monitor, or escort every government plane that lands there. So that's the standard. It's every single one. Feds don't just leave foreign government planes unwatched. It's a government plane, not a ghost plane. Someone has to come out, and we all know they're not going to just call an Uber. Given that I know most of the locations that these vehicles visit, I am entirely confident in stating that the plane and those vehicles are connected to 920 North King Street, which is at a place that is marketed also as 1 Rodney Square. Nearly every federal vehicle that visits the airport will pass through King Street at least once, because that is where the majority of the vehicles are ultimately stationed. We do this because it is discreet. The reason people don't know about this is because assets can be transferred to cars without diplomatic plates. You can't just do transfers with the diplomatic plates out in the open, or it would immediately tie assets to government. That's why the fleet is either federal, unmarked, or local. So when I say government vehicles, what I'm really saying is they most likely immediately swapped the plates for local, but they still had federal clearance. I'm going to skip this because I think this could be... The whole idea is they get in, they have a meeting, they get out, the plates are then changed back, and they go back to a designated area. However, sometimes it is decided that they need to have a meeting in a more convenient spot, a meeting that's not in a car. That is what I am telling you happened with SUBTT. It obviously would be impossible for me to show you the evidence of these activities because I obviously can't do that. I obviously can't pull dash cam or cameras. But I am telling you that this is known among insiders, and if you want confirmation, you can ask Intel insiders of yours, and they will confirm that that is exactly what happened. You may ask why this happened in the first place, and I'll give you my best information, and here's where it gets big. In June of 1997, the Department of Justice's own directory lists, quote, Wilmington Residence Office, 1 Rodney Square, Suite 404, 920 King Street, Wilmington, Delaware, 19801. That is your line to know that it is a federal resident office that is at that exact address. You can open it yourself in this link and look for a page titled 675. Okay, we did that. We confirmed that. Wilmington Resident Office, Suite 404, 1 Rodney Square. And so we can confirm this is, like he says or she says, the Department of Justice's own directory list, okay? Today, if you punch that address into public directories, you will find the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, at 920 North King Street. And at the same address, the United States Secret Service, 920 North King Street, Wilmington, Delaware, 19801. Both are live. Both are at Suite 404. Both also publish phone numbers.
Okay, so that's all the further I want to go into that. You can find this episode on Candace Owens' YouTube page. If you want to go into any further than that, that's all the further I want to be connected to that. And we'll keep moving on. Okay, moving right along.
And I just want to know why, Charlie. I want to know why the decision was made to murder Charlie Kirk, a decision that very clearly had to be approved by Charlie's friends. That's all I have. I want to know why. I think we deserve to know why. And instead, we're going to be sued. I guess, is this going to be the pathway forward? You're going to start murdering more people in broad daylight for knowing? Is that our consequence? Is that like the slave consequence? Is that like, catching a slave and cutting off their limbs for knowing that you're evil, for finding out, for us understanding what we have known from the moment that we saw Charlie die and people started peddling out excuses after excuse why we weren't allowed to look into this? I think all we want to know is why. We want to know what that slave did wrong. I think that's fair. I think we just want to know what he did wrong, okay? Because that email, that checks out. Yeah. Secret Service, the FBI, the DEA being involved, why this plane, the quote unquote Egyptian plane, landed into Wilmington, that checks out. So I guess to our government, what's the next move? Like, are we just going to keep spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to see how much money can be spent on a psychological operation to convince people not to believe their own eyes and to convince people to accept the Fed slop, to convince people that Charlie ate 3,000 pounds of energy coming at him? Can we know why? We just want to know what he did. I want to know what Charlie did. I think about this. It is like, what did Charlie find out? Charlie found something out. That's it, guys. Charlie found something out and it cost him his life. That's the truth. Okay. Charlie knew something. And whatever it is.
I think that one of the things that is going to become important is to understand what it was that Charlie Kirk was trying to prevent. And I think he said it best in the White House hall when he openly hollered at Joe Kent and begged him to not let them take us into Iran. I somehow get the feeling that that's going to become very important for this story moving forward. Okay, let's keep moving. Okay, so let's start getting into some of the details about these flights. And Candace has done some tremendous work, her viewers. She put something out there and everybody goes tracking these flights. So it's been pretty amazing to watch what a world can do when they're trying to find the truth. So without further ado, let's roll into it.
23rd, Sean Foyt heads up the TPUSA Faith Kingdom to the Capitol Tour event, which happens to be in Topeka, Kansas. So I have a question. How did he get here from Israel? Did he fly into Wichita the day before and then make the very short drive and make his event? I don't know, but I'm putting it in there because once again, we have this plane in here and we've got another TPUSA Faith event that is happening right around the corner. It's about, I think, just under 2 hours to get from Wichita, Kansas to Topeka, where the TPUSA Faith Kingdom of the Capitol Tour continues. Okay. April 3rd, BND is in here does a test flight. I think I might have dropped this blue thing. Oh yeah, it's been here the whole time. That's right. This plane stays here a long time. So it's been here from February 21st, and then it's going to head out and it just leaves on May 9th. Okay. That's going to end 2023. Literally every time this plane is here, I can pin a TPUSA Faith event that's happening, which is like some luck, right? February 9th, our plane comes in. Our Egyptian military plane comes in. This time it is headed to Nebraska, and it lands in Nebraska and then flies straight to Lincoln, Nebraska. It lands in Omaha, and then flies straight over to Lincoln, and it stays in Lincoln for a mysterious 5 days. Now, I'm racking my brains. I couldn't find anything going on with Turning Point, but I was like, I bet there's something going on in Turning Point in Lincoln, Nebraska, because that's a pretty precise location for this plane to go to. And lo and behold, Turning Point USA, on February 11th, while this is going on, starts a chapter in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm not kidding. Here's the post. Now, to be clear, because people will go out and say, oh, they already had events at the University of Nebraska. They had a regional chapter, which in Turning Point lingo, like if there's not enough interest in a certain area, they will develop these regional chapters, and people in that area who are interested in Turning Point USA will work to make events happen. They did not have a Lincoln specific Nebraska chapter, according to their own Instagram, as you can see, until February 11th. This is a chapter Instagram. I should be clear. This is the UNL, University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and they're saying it's going to be our first weekly meeting. Here it is. And I think you cut off the bottom. Oh, and it's on the right side. Starting next week, TPUSA at UNL. It is official. Our first weekly meeting. Okay, February 20th, Nebraska City campus. You got it. You got it. I would like to know, if you are a Turning Point USA insider and you are watching this show, who started that chapter. That is very relevant to my research right now. Who started the Lincoln, Nebraska chapter? Because I can't find that. I've looked through, I've tried to see who was the first person. Typically, I think to start a charter chapter, you have to apply. So there's got to be some students, and maybe you're in Lincoln, Nebraska, and you can ask around who said, hey, let's start this chapter in Lincoln, Nebraska, all by ourselves. We're not going to be regional anymore. I need to know who that is, okay?
Governor Jim Pillen announcing a statewide partnership to bring Turning Point USA's Club America chapters to every Nebraska high school. Now, the Turning Point USA was founded by Charlie Kirk, and it's a conservative student group, and Governor Pillen says he was inspired by Kirk, who was assassinated last year. The details of the partnership were initially unclear, as Pillen's office told reporters today that he would not take any questions at the news conference. But we now know that schools will not be required to have chapters, and there are no costs or additional resources from the state associated with this partnership. A Turning Point USA representative says the governor's office reached out to them about this partnership, and they're trying to meet the demand for more clubs.
It's responding to students that want to get involved. We're over 3,200 chapters nationwide. We have hundreds of students that reach out every day, and so we want to help as many of those students as possible. It's really the demand.
Now, I don't want to get into the politics of Turning Point USA, any of the politicizing of what Charlie Kirk was or was not. This video is about how it's affecting Nebraska and how Nebraska is connected. And there seems to be a big push by our governor to ride the wave of Turning Point USA. And in the end, I think that's going to be a huge mistake for him, knowing what I know.
So that happens, and then on February 14th, our plane departs back for Cairo. And this time, BTT departs Cairo, stays in Wilmington for 2 days, and then heads back to Cairo on the 16th. Yeah, okay, so that's February 14th, right? It comes back pretty quickly. On March 29th, BTT, our yellow plane, departs Egypt again, and it comes back to Wichita, Kansas. It lands at 2:19 p.m. in Wichita, Kansas. And guess who was in Kansas that week? I mean, it's just incredible. It is incredible. Charlie Kirk was speaking at the University of Kansas, okay, on April 3rd. So let me know when you get uncomfortable and you realize these are not coincidences, okay? This is a conspiracy. This plane is following Turning Point USA Faith and Charlie Kirk, or Charlie Kirk, by the way, at those TPUSA Faith events. It's possible Charlie was speaking. I just can't find it. It's very difficult to search Charlie Kirk right now and to go back. So I'm going to continue to build this timeline, but you're getting the picture here. Let's keep going. So yes, that plane comes in here. And then I have here on April 9th that Charlie is in Omaha, Nebraska, speaking at the Lord of Hosts Church. So he's doing TPUSA faith stuff in general. And then we get our blue plane comes in. Our blue plane, remember, is the one that whenever it's here, it's going to sit for a little bit, and it sure does sit for a little bit. On April 19th, it goes to Provo. It comes in from Cairo via Paris. It makes a stop in Salt Lake City and then goes on to Provo. That is April 19th. Okay. Lo and behold, BTT is then going to come in from Cairo via Paris through North Dakota to Provo. The planes are together. Again, they're meeting up. They're kind of tracking each other. And who's in the area? Who's in Utah at the same time? Of course, Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk is doing a Salt Lake University event. Sorry, it's not Salt Lake University. It's the University of Utah at Salt Lake City. I think that's correct. Now let's get into 2025. This is the year that Charlie gets assassinated, right? I don't know what this plane is doing. I don't know who's on the plane. I do know that if Tulsi Gabbard or Joe Kent is potentially watching this, or if they are, as they have stated, or as the public figured out, being blocked from Kash Patel, you should be able to look into these flights and see who is on these manifests, and it is going to be extremely relevant. I'm telling you, it is going to be extremely relevant. And my best guess is that they are going to try to hide that or lie about it. And I'm wondering if these planes potentially maybe had some Americans on them. I'm going to keep with this timeline. You can see in June of 2025, by the way, is when the article broke. Sean Feucht is credibly accused of having been involved in fraud and embezzlement. There are multiple organizations that are binding together to say that he's immoral, he is unethical, that he has shady financial activities, he's misrepresented his ministry activities, ceaseless financial solicitation they accuse him of, intermingled with grand visions, which has led to untold financial gain and a steady stream of unpaid labor from volunteers. Starting to sound a little bit familiar here. And they make statements that he was purportedly using, and I'm going to say this is allegedly, I'm reading this from the article, using business credit cards for personal expenses. He diverted donations to personal accounts. He inflated the prices that were paid to vendors. He's using ministry funds to rent his own cabin in Montana for the ministry board meeting. I mean, there's all of these allegations that are coming from him. And by the way, even people who formerly worked at Turning Point USA say the same thing, that there's something not right about Sean Feucht. Despite all of this, and this breaks down the very many properties that they say are owned by him, very expensive properties, by the way. There's always going to be a real estate there's almost going to be like a real estate theme and what we're going to discuss later. They're breaking down like this guy owns a ton of properties. He's moving a lot of properties. That's interesting to me. When the money is looking funny and you see that people own a lot of properties, you should be interested. Okay, I'm not making any allegations against him, but I'm going to make some broader allegations that when I started piercing this layer of...
Just keep track of what she's saying about these properties, LLCs, because that's going to become very important, not directly tied to the Charlie Kirk assassination, but here locally.
Something not right about Sean Feucht. Despite all of this, and this breaks down the very many properties that they say are owned by him, very expensive properties, by the way. There's always going to be a real estate there's almost going to be like a real estate theme and what we're going to discuss later. They're breaking down like this guy owns a ton of properties. He's moving a lot of properties. That's interesting to me. When the money is looking funny and you see that people own a lot of properties, you should be interested. Okay, I'm not making any allegations against him, but I'm going to make some broader allegations that when I started piercing this layer of the Mormon church, I was like, is this a church or is this a real estate empire? I've never seen so many real estate transactions in my life. People that were paying cash more than what the property was worth. And I'm going, when I see this much real estate being purchased in cash, I know a thing or two about money laundering. It's a good business to be in, is all I'm saying.
If you've been around me any time at all, and the current subscribers to this channel, the majority of you have, you know, when it comes to the Mormon church, I've been speaking about this for a long time. I started tracking their purchases in 2023. And here in the Midwest, especially here in Nebraska, that seems to be the tidal shift where the majority of our farm ground that's been purchased has been purchased by the LDS, the Mormon church. And it's a lot of farm ground, and I've spoken to a lot of farmers about the competition that they're in to buy some of this ground. And the money that the Mormon church is willing to spend is far exceeding land values. Keep that in mind.
Right? It's a good business to be in. And I got to be honest, these mega churches are looking a little funny. Okay? They're looking a little funny. What was it? Joel Osteen Like the plumber was fixing a toilet and found like $1 million in the hole. Do you remember this story? Mega church pastor Joel Osteen, his church. I think it was, I got to pull it up if you can find it, Skylar. The plumber's like, hey, I'm here to fix the toilet, and finds that actually there's like almost $1 million of cash in one of the walls. And I think Joel Osteen issued a statement and was like, oh, well, you know, we are very surprised to see this. It's very strange. This is in the walls of our church. That's amazing. God has blessed us greatly for supporting Israel. I'm joking. He didn't say that. But I think the excuse that he gave, here it is, the plumber doing repairs, November 10th at the mega church, blah, blah, blah. There was a loose toilet in the wall. We removed the tile and boom, 500 envelopes fell out of the wall. And I was like, oh, wow. And then the plumber contacted maintenance, and Joel Osteen's excuse was like, we had some money that was missing at the church. Here it is. These pastors like tickle me now. It's like, I don't know. That's so crazy. That is so crazy. There you are. There you are, $1 million. I did not see you there. Happens all the time. Rich people problems, you know, rich people problems, just so much money. You got to put it behind a toilet. And he said that that's what they thought maybe it was. To me, when I hear cash flowing like that, my mind goes to, and we're talking like a lot of these mega churches are always in California or Arizona, and I'm not saying this about Joel Osteen. I'm talking about the broader implications of cash being found in any place. I'm thinking the cartels, right? Like that's where my mind's at. I'm thinking cartel money is flowing through the border and could end up in a closet somewhere. Again, I'm not correlating that to Joel Osteen, but...
Or some of that money could actually wind up in Hastings, Nebraska, when we're talking about the cartels. Okay, so let's start getting into tracking some of these planes and checking out how often they're coming to Nebraska. This will be very interesting.
Truth about that, these people were going to lie. Oh, he never blinked, and we were just his greatest supporters. Bob Shillman is angry, and they're basically saying, Charlie, this can never happen again, and you have to be pro-Israel. That's kind of the vibes that they're putting down, okay? That happens July 11th, and now our plane is coming back from Egypt. Just 9 days later, it goes through Omaha, Nebraska. At 11:37 a.m., it departs, and it heads over to Lincoln, Nebraska, and it stays there for 6 days. I would love to know, and again, anybody who has the ability to pull the files, maybe you just work at the airport, I really would like to know who was on that plane. I think this July 20th date is very important, okay? I think the post-TPUSA conference dates are critical to what happened here, okay? Then Charlie speaks to New York, and after that, he heads up to New York in the Hamptons, and Charlie Kirk himself, described it as an intervention, okay? And maybe they were going to see if they could fix them. You know how every episode of Intervention ends. They ask you if you want to go to rehab because they love you. Okay, they read the letters. Charlie, I remember you. You were so brave. You were so brave, and you loved Israel, and you understood that your job is to be a good little goy and do what we say. I miss you. Do you want to go to rehab? But that phone call wasn't coming in from mom or dad. It was coming in from Bibi Netanyahu. And that's kind of terrifying, actually. Bibi Netanyahu is like pretending to be your friend. Hey, come to Israel. And how do we know that happened? Because Bibi told us himself. So this is not in dispute, right? Bibi raced out of the gate to establish Charlie Kirk as like Israel's top goy. And he said probably too much. He said he called him 2 weeks ago and he invited him to Israel. And the part that he left out was Charlie declined. So when he got the phone call to go to figurative rehab, Charlie said, no, I'm good, actually. Bibi offered to fund Turning Point to the next level, okay? Andrew Colvett should be able to confirm that, yes or no. Don't dance around it. I don't like with dancing. Him and Alex said, oh, this, blah. It's a yes, okay? Take it to the next level. With what money, though, actually? It is relevant. And it is true that Charlie did not know where the money was coming from. That's why he established Doge, okay? He did not know where the money was coming from or where it was going to. That sounds to me like a very sophisticated money laundering operation could have been happening under his nose. Now, I'm not a forensic accountant. I am saying this so that those of you who are forensic accountants can go do what you do and figure out for Charlie, establish the internet doge. Okay. Where was the money coming from and where was it going to? And then my Turning Point insiders tell me the money was indeed looking funny. Okay. It was just a lot of money coming in really fast and going out really fast. And I can tell you what it sounds like. We don't have any facts on that. We only have just a sense of Charlie's emotion at the time. He says, no, BB, I don't know maybe where this money's coming from. I'm good. I'm not going to go to rehab in Israel, and I'm not going to take your money. Charlie says no. Okay. And what happens next after the Hamptons retreat is that and I think this is a BTT. I didn't put this on August 17th. I missed this. BTT comes in. Is that BTT? Stays for 6 days. Yeah, because I went back to Cairo. BTT, that's our yellow plane, comes into Nebraska and again does that trip into Lincoln immediately. And again, I think these trips are very important. Okay. Turning Point USA insiders, I know some of you guys are becoming more and more courageous. What was going on in Nebraska? What's going on at the Lincoln chapter? How did the Lincoln chapter come together? I think you were making a note that that was supposed to be in 2025. The Lincoln chapter came together. Is that what you were saying, Mark? Okay, so I'll edit that in our updated timeline so that you guys that are watching this can update that in your timeline. What is going on in Lincoln, Nebraska? I feel like something very relevant is happening here. Then we have, of course, the final time that that plane comes in. And that before Charlie's assassination, rather, it comes in on September 4th. It heads to Minot, North Dakota, and then it heads directly there to Provo. And it lands in Provo on September 4th at 12:46. And it was a full plane. Okay, that's what we can say. It was a full plane, according to a person overseas who had intimate knowledge. And I think the information is solid. And it was not a full plane when it departs the morning that Charlie is assassinated.
I think the most important thing to look at in this pattern is whether you're looking at Wilmington, Delaware, Wichita, Kansas, or Minot, North Dakota, all the places that these Egyptian military planes have been tracked. The one thing that you see that they have in common when you look at Omaha, you have Offutt Air Force Base, Kansas Air Force Base, Minot, North Dakota Air Force Base. But there's something strange that's happening in Nebraska. Every time, as you can go back and look at her timeline, every time you see that the Egyptian planes come to Omaha, they are there for a very brief moment, like they're picking up someone. And then their next stop is Lincoln, Nebraska. Now, that's a pattern change, right? And you see the amount of time, 5-6 days, where it's staying in Lincoln, Nebraska. What is in Lincoln, Nebraska that would require such a long stay? And why are they stopping in Omaha first when Lincoln has an airport that they could have flown right into? Well, we're going to get to there. And with just a little bit of common sense, I think you can figure that one out. So Hastings, Nebraska, United States. Pay attention, because there's more to come. And the one thing that this is going to prove in the end is that one person with a plan and a goal and deciding to use his entire life to be able to be in a position to change America from right here in the middle of America. Hastings, Nebraska. Not everything is on our doorsteps right now. But if we don't start clearing up what is on everybody else's doorstep, it's just a matter of time before it hits yours. I've posted some videos that are dealing with missing children, missing scientists, and you're about to find out how all of this is correlated and how Hastings, Nebraska is going to start a wildfire like you've never seen. And we've had plenty of those this year. It's been a chaotic year. We've had fireballs exploding in March. Hastings, we had 3 earthquakes on March the 1st and another one on March the 12th. The largest one being a 4.1 that rocked things on a very specific day. More to come on that. Pay attention. And I would ask, please leave a comment, like this video, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. We've kept this very low for a reason. There are certain people right now that are subscribers of this channel, and they know what is taking place. And they've been here for many years doing it. Right now, I get to be the face. But trust me, I don't stand alone. God bless you. Good night. And remember, be good to one another. Signing off. It's been Principles of Seven, and I've been your host, Dave Sharp.